In my series on consent manager under the DPDP rules, we have already spoken about some basic qualifications and regulatory requirements. Today we are going to talk about statutory requirements of a consent manager. Welcome to my YouTube channel where you daily see new content on data privacy, and as I said, we will look into statutory requirement of a consent manager. Remember, consent manager is no more an internal function. The DPDP rule says that you need to hire a consent manager, and organizations, service providers who want to provide service around data privacy subjects need to get registered as a consent manager organization under the Data Protection Board of India, right? So after getting registered, which we spoke about yesterday, what are their further obligations? First of all, we'll touch base upon the regulations that have, or obligations that have come in for data fiduciary. We already spoke about the notices that data fiduciary need to issue to data principals. Right now we are talking about consent manager, where we have already spoken about the basic registration of a consent manager, and today we are talking about the obligations of a consent manager. Of course, this follows with handling of private data of state beneficiaries, followed by reasonable security safeguards, intimation and timelines of intimation of personal data breach, if at all that happens, and then the variable consent concept that has come up in the DPDP rules. So these are the new obligations, or you can say fine-tuned obligations that have come in for data fiduciaries. Now, who is a consent manager? Consent manager is that role, responsibility, individual, entity, whichever way you want to take it. There are a lot of softwares also doing that. But then the individuals whose data you are processing, right? The term is data principal for him, data principal, data subject. He needs to know why you are processing his data, what is your purpose of processing the data. So purpose clarity has to be there, and based on the clarity of purpose, the fiduciary who is processing the data has to get a consent and approval from that person that yes, he is okay that you process his data. That is what is called consent management, right? So the explanation of purpose, the collection of data, and by DPDP Act, by the way, processing means collection, processing, storing, sharing with third parties, or deleting personal data of any Indian citizen. You are supposed to be compliant under DPDP Act. So the entity or the person responsible for collecting a consent, which has to be very, very informed and specific to the purpose, managing the records of these, and allowing the provision of withdrawing the consent as one of the data principal rights, is the consent manager. He is therefore responsible for explaining it to the principal as to why is the data being collected and what is the benefit. DPDP rule says that you have to define granularly against collected data or collected data type as to what service is the principal going to get against that, and provide an easy method with granular options so that people can easily grant consent, people can easily withdraw the consent. From statutory point of view, the consent manager organization on their own website or their own application, maybe they can have both of them, should provide details about their own promoters and directors, their own senior and key management, the stakeholders in their organization, both as individuals as well as corporate stakeholders who hold more than 2% of share of their organization. Which organization? Consent manager organization, not the fiduciary, right? Consent manager organization shareholders holding more than 2% of shares at the start of the given month, their promoters, their directors, their key management, senior management. This is the information that has to be always available on the website of the consent manager organization. Any other information that the board thinks from time to time, reviewing the consent management practices being followed, board may ask to disclose more information. Operationally, they should have a very effective audit mechanism, and they should be able to review, monitor, evaluate, and report about their own audits, right? So reviewing, monitoring, evaluating, reporting on their own audits is something which is another important aspect. To the board, they should report about the technical and organizational controls, the system procedures and safeguards that are there, and they should continue always to keep fulfilling the requirements of the registration that we spoke about in the last video, right? So if, as we spoke, that if in case they are not able to fulfill their obligations of registration, the board has the right to cancel their registration, provided the board has given them an opportunity to be heard, right? So And on the last but not the least, they cannot transfer their registration as consent manager to any other organization, not even by means of selling their own organization to someone else. If in case they want to do that, then they have to go to the board and get necessary approvals from the board before actually selling off the organization or transferring off the organization or transferring off the consent management registration to any other organization. So that's about their statutory obligations. As I mentioned, non-compliance on their own statutory obligations could lead to their own cancellation of their license to act as a consent manager. I hope you like the content of this video. In the next video, we are going to talk about the obligations of consent manager to the data fiduciary and the data principles. So subscribe to my YouTube channel and share your feedback in the comment section. Thank you.